Olá, boa noite, sejam todos bem-vindos ao 26º Congresso Internacional de Assistência Social da LGW,
Congress on Social
edição
Assistance.
2021. A gente começou
It
esse
is the
encontro retirando as
2021
máscaras
online
para lembrar
edition.
sempre desse
So we
momento
have
que
started by
continua
removing
sendo
the masks,
muito
and we know
importante.
that wearing masks
Afinal
is
de
of
contas, nós
utmost
ainda
importance.
estamos vivendo em estado
After
de
all,
pandemia e cuidar da
we're still
saúde
living a
é muito
pandemic, and
demais.
we
Nos
know
nossos
that taking
bastidores,
care of
nós
our
estamos
health
aqui
is really
vendo, claro,
essential.
né, todos os
Here at the
nossos
backstage,
produtores, todos
we
nós
are aware that all
todas as pessoas
producers,
envolvidas na
all
transmissão
the
deste
staff
Congresso
involved in
Internacional
the
de Assistência
broadcast
Social
of
da
this
LGW estão sempre
event,
tomando
LGW
as
26 International
medidas e
Congress
protocolos
on Social
necessários
Assistance.
para
We have to guarantee
manutenção da
that people are
saúde.
following the
Mais uma
necessary
vez,
protocols
agradecemos
regarding
a
health.
sua presença
Once again, thank you very
neste
much for being
ambiente de
here. It is
paz.
a
Ao seu
pleasure to
coração,
have you here in
nós
this peaceful
dedicamos uma
environment.
saudação de
Now we
fraternidade,
dedicate
de boa vontade
a
que nos
fraternal
acompanha
salute, the
neste
legionnaire
grande
salute
movimento,
that
Legião da Boa Vontade.
follows us
Deus
in the
está
Legion of
presente e
Goodwill.
viva
God is
Jesus
present.
em
Jesus
nossos
lives in our
corações
hearts
para sempre.
forever.
Nós começamos essa noite de hoje convidando você,
So let's
como é
begin.
tradição nos eventos da Legião
As
da
it is a
Sociedade, a
tradition
fazer
here at
instante de
LGW,
silêncio,
we
um
invite you
momento
to
dedicado à paz,
reflect
para que
for a
nós possamos
moment, a moment of
encontrar o
silence
equilíbrio
dedicated to
emocional
peace,
e a
so that we
saúde
can
do nosso espírito, da
achieve
nossa
the
alma.
emotional balance and
Então, nos
spiritual
preparamos
health
para
in our
esse
soul.
instante dedicando ao
So
seu
now we are
coração
ready for
uma
this
reflexão do
moment,
escritor Paiva
dedicating
Neto, em seu
a
livro A
reflection written by
Esperança
Paiva
Não
Neto
Morre
in
Nunca,
his book,
página
Hope Never
229,
Dies,
com o
page
título
229.
Equilíbrio
The title
Desejável.
is
Ele assim diz
Desirable
assim:
Balance.
quando o
Let's
ser
read
humano
it.
respeitar o ser humano,
When the human
aí
being
sempre
respects
haverá
another
solução
human
para
being,
qualquer
there's always
problema.
going to be a solution for
Por
any
pior que
problem,
seja, porque ele não
as
vai
bad as
pensar
it may
só com o
seem,
cérebro,
because he will not
usará
only use his
também
brain,
o
he will also
coração.
use
O
his
ideal
heart.
é chegarmos ao
The
ponto
ideal
de
situation
raciocinar
would
com
be
o
to
órgão do
reason with the
sentimento
organ of
e sentir
feelings
com o cérebro,
and feel
posto que
with the
as
brain,
qualidades de um
as the qualities
estarão
of the former
iluminando
will
as do outro.
enlighten the
Aí
latter.
haverá o equilíbrio
Then the
desejável
desirable balance for
para o
success
sucesso.
will
Vamos
appear.
então a um instante de silêncio,
So now
ouvindo a
let's just
composição Prece para ter
enjoy the moment.
tranquilidade, também de
It's a
autoria
prayer
do
for
jornalista e
tranquility,
radialista Paiva
written
Neto.
by the journalist Paiva Neto. Here we go.
Após esse instante de paz, nós
After
passaremos
this
a
brief
falar agora
moment
sobre o
of
tema
peace,
deste ano nesse nosso
let's talk
encontro:
now about
desigualdade
the
social e
topic of our
pobreza,
event,
impactos
social inequality and
psicossociais da
poverty,
pandemia.
psychosocial
Vamos
impacts of
juntos
the
discutir
pandemic.
nesta noite os
So we're going to discuss
desdobramentos da pandemia
together
na
the
assistência social,
consequences of
na
the
promoção
pandemic
da
on social
cidadania
assistance,
planetária,
in
propondo
promoting
caminhos aos
the
desafios
citizenship,
gerados pela
promoting ways
instabilidade
to the
econômica
challenges that
que
stem
resulta
from
no aumento das demandas
economical
sociais.
instability that
Nós lembramos que
yields
este
in
evento
social
está sendo
demands. So it's
transmitido
important to
em
remember that
4
this event is
idiomas:
being broadcast in
português,
4 languages:
inglês,
Portuguese,
espanhol e
English,
Libras, que é a
Spanish,
língua
and
brasileira
Libras,
de sinais.
Brazilian
Com a
Sign
palestra
Language.
inaugural na noite de hoje, nós
We
teremos a
now, with
palavra
our
da
first
representante do PNUD,
lecture, we're going to
trazendo a
have the
palestra
representative of
Recuperação
PNUD.
Inclusiva e Resiliente da
She's going to talk about
Covid-19 para meios de
resilience in
sobrevivência
COVID-19
sustentáveis,
as a
bem-estar
way
e dignidade
for
para
sustainable
todos,
overcoming
erradicando a
well-being
pobreza e a
and
fome
dignity for
em todas as
everyone,
suas formas e
eradicating poverty
dimensões
in all
para
its forms and
alcançar a
dimensions
agenda
so that one can
2030.
achieve the
Ainda na noite
2030
de hoje, nós
agenda.
teremos um debate sobre os
We're also
impactos
going to have a
psicossociais da
debate
pandemia
on the
e o agravamento
psychosocial
das
impacts of the
desigualdades
pandemic
e da pobreza
and
em todas as
social
suas
inequality, how it's
dimensões.
getting worse. Not
Contaremos
only
também
that,
com a
poverty is
presença do
all
senhor
its
Alain Bojani,
dimensions. We're going to have
representante da
Mr.
Organização das
Alain
Nações
Bojanic,
Unidas para a
representative
Alimentação
of the
e
UN
Agricultura, a FAO, da
for Feeding
Colômbia.
and
Ele é
Agriculture,
doutor em
FAO
Economia
from
Ambiental
Colombia.
pela
He's a
Universidade de Utrecht, na
PhD in
Holanda, e nos
environmental
falará
economy
sobre segurança
from the
alimentar e
Netherlands. And he's going to
nutricional
talk about
e a
food
pandemia.
security and nutritional
Para você que
security
está
and its relation with
acompanhando
the
este
pandemic.
evento,
So
o
for the ones who are
26º
watching us,
Congresso Internacional de
LGW's
Assistência
26th
Social da
International
Região
Congress
da
on
Boa
Social
Vontade,
Assistance,
marque a gente nas suas redes sociais com
follow us on
@LGW
our social
Brasil.
media
Contamos aí
at
também com essa
LGW
divulgação
Brazil.
para os familiares,
So it's
amigos,
important
a
to
todos
divulge
aqueles
what
que
we are doing,
estão
talk to your
também
friends, your
neste
family
trabalho da
members,
assistência
people that
social.
are
E também com a
following us and
hashtag
are related to social
Congresso
assistance. And
Social
also hashtag
LGV.
Congresso
Registraremos aqui os seus
Social
comentários, a sua
LDV LGW,
participação
so we can
ao
talk
longo desta noite. O
comments or
evento começa
replies
hoje,
as the
amanhã nós
event
teremos também
proceeds.
um
So today
segundo
is
dia
the
aí,
first event, and tomorrow we're
acompanhando
going to have our
mais
second moment.
palestras e também
So
com
we're going
mais
to
um
have
debate
more
sobre este
lectures and
tema
a new debate
importantíssimo que
on this
trazemos mais
topic that
uma vez nesse
has
Congresso de
the utmost
Assistência Social.
importance and
Nós
is
vamos
connected
ouvir
to social
agora a
assistance. So
palavra do
now
senhor Alziro
we're
de
going to
Paiva.
have
Abrindo este
Mr.
evento,
Alziro
ele
de Paiva.
representa o
He's going to open our
diretor-presidente da
event. He
Legião da Boa
represents
Vontade, o
the
jornalista
president
e
of the Legion of
radialista
Goodwill,
José de
the
Paiva
writer and
Neto.
journalist José de Paiva
Boa noite
Neto.
a todas e a
Let's
todos.
listen to him.
É uma grande
Good
honra
evening, everyone. It
representar
is
o
a great honor to be
diretor-presidente da Legião
here
da Boa Vontade e
representing
também meu
the
pai, José
president
de Paiva Neto,
José de Paiva
nesta
Neto, who is also my
26ª edição
father,
do Congresso
at
Internacional
LGW's
de
26th
Assistência Social
International
da
Congress
LGV,
on
em
Social
que debateremos o
Assistance.
tema
In this
desigualdade
event, we're going to
social e
talk
pobreza,
about social
impactos
inequality and poverty,
psicossociais da pandemia.
psychosocial impacts of the
A nossa
pandemic.
saudação de paz e as
So
boas-vindas a
our
todos e a
legionnaires
todas que
salute and
acompanham
our
esta
welcoming for
transmissão,
everyone
que pelo
that
segundo
is
ano
following
consecutivo
us. It is the
ocorre de
second
forma
time
virtual em
that
razão
we
de
are having this
continuarmos
Congress
mantendo o
online. Why?
distanciamento
Because we are
social
following
por conta
social
da pandemia
distancing
do novo
because of
coronavírus.
the
Também quero
COVID-19
transmitir a
pandemic.
nossa solidariedade a todas
Besides
as
that, I
famílias do
want
Brasil e do
to
mundo
be
que passam
solidary for
por
all
momentos
families in Brazil
desafiadores
and all
por
over the
causa
world
desta
that
pandemia.
have been
Nossa
facing challenges
esperança
because of the
é de que as
pandemic.
experiências
Our hope is
compartilhadas
that
neste
experiences
evento
that are shared
possam
in
contribuir
this
para o
event
fortalecimento da
can
assistência
contribute
social,
to the
que
strengthening of
exerce
social
importante
assistance
papel na
that, of
sociedade.
course, has an
Nossa
important
gratidão e
impact on society.
reconhecimento
We are
a
really
todos os
grateful
profissionais que
for
estão
people, for all the
atuando na
staff
linha de
that
frente
are
dos serviços
working the
essenciais
front
de
line
proteção
in
social básica
essential
e
protection
especial
services.
em
Not only
tantas
that,
nações em favor das
in
populações
many
mais
places,
vulneráveis.
in many
A
countries that are in
propósito,
favor
o
of poor
dirigente da
people.
LBV
By the
sempre
way,
afirma que a
Paivaneto
assistência
also
social
always
se
affirms that
faz no
social
coração.
assistance
E
is
também nos
done
ensina
via
que
the heart. And he
quando
also teaches
administramos,
that
devemos
when
fazê-lo
we
oferecendo
manage,
o
we have to
melhor
do
de nós
so by
hoje.
offering the
Contudo,
best of what we
sempre
have.
mirando um futuro,
However, we also
almejar
have
uma
to aim at the
comunidade,
future. We have
país,
to
enfim,
achieve,
mundo
we have to aim at an objective,
pelo
a
esforço
world
das
in
pessoas de
peace
boa vontade.
via the effort of
Isso quer
people
dizer
of goodwill.
agir de forma
And what does
eficaz no
that mean?
presente
That
para que o
in an
amanhã
efficient
seja
way, we
glorificação
can
do
make
que
the
ousemos
present and the
realizar agora.
future
No auge de
glorified.
seus 80 anos de vida, dos quais
At
65 de total
80 years
dedicação ao
old,
serviço humanitário da
Paivaneto
Legião da
has
Boa
spent
Vontade,
65
Paiva
years
Neto tem sido
working
um
with the
grande
Legion of
exemplo de
Goodwill.
liderança,
We know that Paivaneto is
sempre
an example
pensando
of
e
leadership.
trabalhando
He's
em
always
muitas frentes pelo
working
futuro
and
das novas
thinking
gerações
in many
e
different
para que
ways for the
crianças e
future of
adolescentes,
generations so
jovens,
that kids and
adultos, idosos
teenagers,
e famílias
adults, the
tenham seus
elderly,
direitos
and family
defendidos e
members
garantidos
can
e
have
o
their rights
acesso a políticas
guaranteed
públicas de
and
qualidade,
access to public
sejam essas
policies that are
prestadas por
top-notch,
equipamentos públicos ou privados.
regardless of
Por
if they
isso,
are made by
nossa
public or
expectativa é de que
private
possamos sair
sectors.
deste evento
So
mais
we
fortes e
think that we
preparados
can have
para
this, we can lead this
continuarmos
event
contribuindo para a
stronger
construção
so
de um
that we
mundo
can
mais
contribute
justo,
to the world,
digno
so that
e
we can build
colaborativo
a world
e
of
em que
justice,
todos tenham
so that we can
oportunidades
work in a
iguais.
collaborative way, so that
Por
people
isso,
can have equal
desejo a todos um
opportunities. That's
excelente
why
congresso
I
e
wish
muito
you a
obrigado
wonderful
pela
Congress and
sua
thank you
participação.
very much for your participation.
Tá aí, agradecemos o senhor Alziro de Paiva,
Thank you very much,
representante
Mr.
do
Alziro de Paiva,
diretor-presidente da
representing
Legião da Boa Vontade,
the president of the
José de
Legion of
Paiva
Goodwill,
Neto.
José de
Nós
Paiva
vamos
Neto.
acompanhar agora também vídeo institucional para que
So now we're
você
going to
conheça
watch an
um pouco
institutional
mais
video
do
so that we
trabalho
can know a
realizado
bit
pela
more
Legião
about the
da
work
Boa
that has been
Vontade
done by the Legion of
em mais
Goodwill
de 7
in
décadas de
more than
atuação no
7
Brasil e
decades,
também no exterior.
not only
Nós
Brazil,
vamos
but also
acompanhar
in
a
foreign
essência
countries.
da
So we're
atuação
going to follow the
socioassistencial
essence
da
of
LGW.
social
Nesse vídeo você
assistance
vai
that
conhecer então um
LGW
pouco
has been
desta
promoting.
trajetória,
So
desde a
we're going to
sua
have
fundação
the
até os
trajectory
dias
since its
atuais, em que
foundation
se tornou uma
until
grande
the present
entidade de
days.
assistência
LGW has
social no
become
Brasil,
a very
presente
big
também
social
em mais
assistance
6
entity that
países.
is present
Conhecendo
in
então
6
a atuação
countries. So now
socioassistencial
let's
da
learn more
LBV.
about LGW's social assistance program.
A Legião da Boa Vontade foi fundada no Rio de Janeiro
The
em
Legion of Goodwill
1º
was
de
founded
janeiro de
in Rio de Janeiro on January
1950, dia da
1st,
paz e da
1950,
confraternização universal
the
pelo
Day of
saudoso
World
jornalista,
Peace,
radialista,
by
escritor e poeta
the journalist, writer,
Alcide
and
Zaru.
poet Alcide Zaru.
Dos maiores nomes do rádio desde a década
He
de
was one of the biggest
1930,
names of
em
radio since the
1948,
1930s.
Zaru
In
passou a
1948,
dedicar-se de corpo e alma a
Zarur
esse
dedicated
ideal.
himself to
Antes
this
mesmo do
ideal.
registro oficial da LBV,
Before the
ainda no
official
fim da
registration
década
of
de
LGW,
1940,
in the
ela já
end of the
protegia os mais
1940s,
vulneráveis com a
LGW already
popular
protected
sopa dos
the most
pobres,
vulnerable
também
population
conhecida como
via the
sopa do
popular
Zaru.
soup of the
Décadas
poor,
antes do
or
direito à assistência
so
social ser
years
estabelecido
before
na
social assistance
Constituição
was
brasileira,
established in the
o
Brazilian
mundo,
Constitution.
à época, ainda vivia
The
sob a
world back
sombra da
then still
Segunda
lived
Guerra
under the
Mundial.
shadow of the Second World
Inspirado
War,
pelo novo mandamento
and
de
inspired
Jesus,
by the new
amai-vos como eu vos
commandment by
amei,
Jesus,
somente
love
assim
yourselves
podereis
as I
ser
love you,
reconhecidos como
so
meus
that
discípulos, que
you
está no
can
Evangelho de Jesus,
see
segundo João,
yourselves as my
capítulo 13,
disciples. This is in
versículos
St. John's
34 e
Gospel, chapter
35,
13,
Zaru
verses
declarou
34 and
pelo rádio
35.
a
Mr.
guerra
Zarur
mundial
declared
contra
in
a
the radio
fome.
the war
Em
against hunger.
1956, a
In
instituição foi reconhecida
1956,
com o título de
LGW
Utilidade
was
Pública
recognized
Federal.
as
Em
a federal
1961,
utility
inaugurou
tool.
sua
In
primeira
1961,
instituição de
LGW
longa
inaugurated its
permanência
first
para idosos,
institution
em Uberlândia,
for the
Minas
elderly
Gerais.
in
Em
Uberlândia,
1º
Minas
de
Gerais,
setembro
Brazil.
de
On September
1962,
1st,
nascia a
1962,
Ronda da Caridade da LBV,
the charity
mais tarde
round
também
from
conhecida
LGW
como
was
Ronda
born.
da Cidadania.
It was
Uma
also known
expressão
as
da caridade
citizenship
completa,
round
preconizada
that
pelo saudoso
expresses full
fundador da
charity
LBV, a
that
caridade
is
material,
supported by the
aliada
founder
à
of
caridade
LGW, not only material
espiritual.
charity, but also
Pelas
spiritual charity.
madrugadas, oferecia refeição,
During the late nights,
roupas,
people would
pequenos
offer
atendimentos de
food,
enfermaria e
clothes,
corte de cabelo e
help,
barba às
assistance,
pessoas em situação de
hairdressing
rua.
for people
Sobretudo,
that lived on the
levava
streets.
palavras de conforto
Above
à
all,
alma, acolhimento
comforting
e
words
incentivo
were also
para
said,
que elas
and of course,
pudessem
encouraging
superar essa
words for
condição.
people could overcome that bad condition.
O jovem Paiva Neto participou da primeira Ronda da Caridade.
The young Paiva Neto participated in the first charity round, registering people that were served. He was the right hand of Mr. Zarur for many, many years. He participated in the multiplication of those social actions that were voluntary all over Brazil. And those actions included professionalized courses such as typing and sewing, and also shelters for kids and the elderly. In 1966, LGW received the registration of the National Council of Social Assistance. In the 1970s, LGW inaugurated its first daycare centers in many cities of Brazil. In the 1980s, while Brazil was going through a severe economic crisis, as the president of the LGW after the passing of Zarur, Paiva Neto amplified the work of LGW and, of course, made the entity stronger via social assistance and education. Using means of communication, Paiva Neto said, quote, social assistance is done with the heart, unquote. Paiva Neto also talked about the importance of helping people, social equality, racial equality, empowerment of women, equal rights for teenagers and children, so that we can have an interreligious dialogue between many knowledge areas. The so-called LGW's big houses, which were the embryos of the community centers, offered professionalizing courses such as Food Prep and also ProPass, the program for promoting food and education. Years later, from those experiences, the institution got stronger and included services, important services. Children, the future in the present, and youth, the future in the present. Those were important programs. And also LGW's apprentice program. In 1993, the Organic Law of Social Assistance was approved in Low West. In the same year, LGW inaugurated the Community Center for Social Assistance, Dr. Osmar Carvalho Silva, the first one in 1997, the institution that already had special programs in its headquarters got stronger by having technical supervisors made up of social assistants, pedagogues, and psychologists. So this team supports and, of course, teaches professionals, consolidating a top-notch service in terms of social assistance. In 1998 and 1999, with the support from Bandeirantes channel, the Legion of Goodwill, that since 1983 has fought against droughts in Brazil's semi-arid region, released LGW's SOS Northeast, which was one of the greatest movements in Brazil back then. It has delivered more than 4 million kilos of food in more than 1,100 cities. Part of those donations were garnered in the region itself. Another part was transported via aircrafts, not only that, by ships, cars, and lorries that were all over Brazil. And of course, this was done by other means. In 2011, in favor of people that had no houses because of the mountain region of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. In 2015, when a dam in Mariana broke down, and this had an impact in many cities and states, in Minas Gerais and Espírito Santo in Brazil. In 2020, among the pandemic, Brazil has suffered tremendous crisis. The number of unemployment has increased, so that LGW had to amplify its donations and its help.
Enquanto isso, as políticas públicas de proteção
Meanwhile,
social avançavam.
public policies regarding social protection have advanced. As of social assistance conferences, in 2004, the National Policy of Social Assistance was inaugurated. It was considered one of the most advanced in the world. In 2009, the National Document of Social Assistance Services was published, and that document regulates the actions of those services. In 2010, other programs were developed in terms of linking, strengthening, was made available. In 2013, that service was reorganized. So the Legion of Goodwill continues modernizing itself and, of course, modernizing its guidelines and technical processes. Not only that, it also modernizes its administrative processes, having specialized professionals that are in harmony with the new legislation.
ainda apoia outras
LGW
entidades
also
a
supports
se
other entities,
atualizarem por intermédio do
and it makes
programa
these
de
entities modernize
assessoramento,
themselves via
defesa
programs,
e garantia
advising,
de direitos,
counseling, in order to
fomentando
promote and
a
guarantee
Rede
rights,
Sociedade
fostering
Solidária da LBV.
a social society, a solidary society.
A atuação da Legião da Boa Vontade se dá sob um novo paradigma.
LGW works in a different paradigm
E sentimento.
because LGW wants to conciliate reasoning and emotion. So LGW sees each person as a planetary citizen, helping these people in all their dimensions: spiritual, dimension, biological, psychic, and social. For its president, quote, "The stability of the world begins in the heart of the child. That's why, at LGW, we have been applying the pedagogy of affection and the pedagogy of the ecumenical citizen for many, many years. Affection that inspires our pedagogical line in its most important feeling. Not only it is an elevated feeling, it's also a political strategy that has to be understood in its completion, that is in consonance with social justice as a survival strategy for the individual, people, and nations." Unquote. This affection materializes itself in bonds that is created by the people that are helped by LGW, by helping people in a fraternal way, all people that need LGW in order to be the protagonists of their lives. So by doing this, we can hug people in group dynamics and via these smiles that people have, by acting in a firm way against violence, and by, of course, having social intervention practices. That's why we are ready to welcome you. We are ready to welcome each one of you, each heart. It's no wonder the LGW's slogan for more than 7 decades, it says, "We are doing this for a better Brazil and for a happier humankind."
E esse trabalho só é possível porque formamos uma corrente de solidariedade verdadeira.
And this work is only possible because you have this network of solidarity,
Durante a pandemia, o trabalho
as we could explain in this video.
não cessou. Ele se adaptou.
Legion of Goodwill stopped working on the pandemic. We looked after all the protocols for health and took care of many families in social risk, and we attend to the necessities of those people. And that's why we invite you today to be part of this process, be part of this chain of solidarity, helping us do our work. On your screen, you're going to find this QR code where you can make your donation. We would like to remember everybody that this is an event without it's an event without, we're going to have here many partners on this work. We would like to promote this chain of knowledge and actualization. Thank you everybody for generosity and for the friendship to LGW. We saw the video, the essence of social assistance of LGW in LGW, where you could see a little bit of this work we've been doing for more than 7 decades in Brazil, taking this work, solidarity work, to 6 more countries that are part of this chain of peace and are looking at this program right now. Not in Brazil, broadcasting for 16 countries around the world. We'd like to remember that you that are watching us from YouTube, you could send us a message and we'd like to say hello to everybody. And you can mark us in your social networks with @LGW Brazil or with the Congress, 26th Social Congress of LGW. We'd like to show a very moving video in a world with so much suffering. We'd like to give voice for those who look for affection, for rights, and for social justice. We give that for all the elderly that we're taking care in our social elderly centers. So we gave the challenge for them to make poetry for hope. We'd like to show along this Congress some poetry they've done. So I would like to show the video with the poetry from Lights of Hope from Mrs. Alzira Silva Souza. She's 63 years old, from Criciúma, Santa Catarina, and who's going to speak this poetry is going to be the conductor, Vanderlei Alves Pereira. Good evening, everybody, congressists. It's a pleasure being here with you guys on such an important event. And I'd like to bring this beautiful poetry from Alzira Souza. She's 63 years old. She's from Criciúma, Santa Catarina. And she's part of the full life service from LGW.
Luzes de esperança.
Lights of hope.
A esperança é luz no
Hope
horizonte.
is the light in the horizon.
Fagulha que se mantém
It's the spark that
é
stay alight.
Num mar de
It's diving
incerteza.
in a sea of doubt.
É seguir água que
It's
corre
following
de uma fonte.
water that runs from the
A
spring.
esperança ameniza
Hope
o sofrimento,
relieves the
dando
suffering,
suporte para
giving support
sempre vencer.
to always
É
win.
abraçar o mais perfeito
It's embracing
sentimento.
the most perfect feeling.
Novo desafio.
It is the
a
new
cada
challenge
amanhecer.
every sunrise.
A esperança
Hope
é seiva
is the
e
sap of
superação.
overcoming.
Uma insistência,
Persistence,
quase teimosia.
almost
É uma
stubbornness,
inquieta busca por
restless
libertação.
search for
É
freedom.
grande alento.
It's the
para o
great
nosso
inspiration
dia.
in our daily life.
A esperança é
Hope
anseio
is
que
the
não morre.
yearning that never
Ela
dies.
destoa
Life
os
struggles
tropeços da vida.
happen in
É
it.
dádiva de quem luta.
It is
Nunca
the
é
fighter's
sorte.
gift.
É a mão
It
de
is never
Deus
luck. It
para
is the
nós
God hand
estendida.
stretched out to us.
Tá aí a bela poesia, Luzes de
You
Esperança.
guys could hear such a beautiful
É a
poetry,
senhora Alzira
Lights of
Silva
Hope,
Souza, de
from
63
Alzira
anos,
Silva
da cidade
Souza,
de
63 years
Criciúma,
old,
Santa
from
Catarina,
Criciúma, Santa
autora,
Catarina,
né, usuária do programa Vida
which is a
Plena
part
da
of the
Legião da
program
Boa Vontade
Full Life
nesta cidade.
from
A narrativa que
LGW
nós
on that
acompanhamos
city.
foi feita pelo maestro legionário
And
Vanderlei
the speaker
Alves
was
Pereira.
the
E nós
conductor
vamos agora
Vanderlei
fazer,
Alves
então,
Pereira.
a palestra
And
inaugural
now
deste
we'd like to
evento,
bring
com
the
a
speech
representante
from
residente
this
do
Congress
Programa das Nações
with
Unidas
the
para o Desenvolvimento
representative
no Brasil e diretora interina do
of the
Centro
United Nations
Internacional
Development
de
Program in
Políticas
Brazil
para o
and
Crescimento
acting director of the International Policy Center
IPC-IG,
Inclusive Growth,
vinculado ao PNUD.
IPC-IG,
Vamos
linked to the
acompanhar as palavras da senhora
UNDP.
Katina Argueta.
Let's listen to Mrs. Katina Argueta.
Boas noites, senhoras e senhores.
Good
A
evening.
crise da Covid-19 é mais do que uma emergência da saúde
When
global. É uma crise
we
sistêmica de desenvolvimento humano que
The
afeta as
COVID-19
nações
is more than a global health
econômica e
emergency.
social
It's a systemic
de
human development
maneiras
crisis
sem
that
precedentes.
affects economic and social dimensions in unprecedented
As
ways.
desigualdades
The
e
pandemic
impactou de
has
forma
deepened
decisiva
inequalities
todos os
and has
aspectos da vida
decisively
de populações
impacted
no mundo
all
inteiro.
aspects of lives
Embora
of populations
todos os
around the
países sejam
world.
afetados,
Although
países
all
e
countries are
sociedades
affected,
mais
the
desiguais
most
são
unequal
os que mais
countries
sofrem
are the societies that suffer the most on the consequences of the pandemic. The Brazil case is pragmatic because the impact of COVID-19 must be seen in the light of the country's enormous inequality. It's fundamental to analyze the different Brazils that we have in Brazil. The federal district has a human development index of 0.850, which is like Portugal. But if you look to Amazon, this index is like 0.733, which looks like Botswana. Although Brazil has made an important progress in human development in recent decades, the pandemic has overtaken the unresolved tensions between those who have access to opportunities and those who don't have those opportunities, making the difference in access between Brazilians and different Brazilians to very important resources. So this fragility, structural fragility, makes the pandemic even worse. The inequality in Brazil should be looked as a priority, making an intervention reducing the inequality and to ensure the well-being of its society and boost its economy. Brazil recoveries will depend on joint effort at all levels, local, state, and federal, to strengthen health systems, strengthen social protection, bridge the technological gap created, creating sustainable economic opportunities, and promote social cohesion. This process of recovery after COVID, which is going to be a historic opportunity to make a Brazil without poverty, and more than that, a Brazil without inequality, with a partnership with the nature, and looking for development that bring all Brazilians in it, not leaving anyone behind. The government now and the society face an unprecedented regulatory and fiscal policy disagreements. And here we have, in addition to saving lives, government has to establish a way to recover by betting on sustainable future, ensuring a resilient and inclusive recovery at all levels in Brazil requires continuing and working on fight those systemic underdevelopment challenges. This experience of previous health crises revealed that it's essential to prioritize investments on social sectors, even in terms of social economic recession. This social protection would include cash transfer, universal health coverage, and access to other basic services. And it can be crucial to not only to help families sustain themselves in the short term, but also to root out inequality more broadly. Thus, it is necessary to provide support by food, guaranteeing access to health centers, as well as send children and adolescents to school and eradicate child labor. In 2020, the total sum of beneficiaries of federal programs of social protection reached a total of 89 million of Brazilians. This is 42% of the population. The economic shock caused by the pandemic generated loss of income for informal workers and workers who were in precarious jobs. And with that, poverty increased. The economic response must reach the weak links of the social and productive fabric, supporting their basic capacities of guaranteeing their livelihood throughout and with cash transfer programs, to see if this represents an excellent opportunity to improve public policies and go beyond the programs, short-term financial. It will requires sustainable investment in the future to ensure well-being, decent work for workers in the informal economy. In 2019, in 11 states, more than 50% of jobs were informal. In Pará, 62%, Maranhão, 6%, the two states with the greatest informality. Solidarity and public-private partnerships are critical to building resilient social protection systems that can withstand shock, strategize for informal sector workers, and project systems that can withstand shock, strategize for informal sector workers, and project new generation for jobs that support entrepreneurship is necessary to link and respond to COVID-19, the necessary and urgent actions that address the restoration of balance between people and the planet. As part of a new social safety net, encouraging sustainable public-private partnerships, such as investment in bioeconomy, renewable energy, in ecotourism, in transport system, and green cities, through appropriate incentives that encourage a green recovery. It is necessary to transform agriculture in an ally of the environment, establishing intelligent food systems and diets with government programs that favor low-carbon approaches, ensuring integrated actions with the health sector. Many of these solutions have health and economic benefits, while building resilience to future disasters, specifically benefiting the most vulnerable populations. For countries like Brazil, the need to have the capacity to develop new products and services becomes imperative. In the context of the COVID-19 crisis, the dependence of the technology has intensified and different essential aspects have come to depend on internet-based resources and online applications. The ability to work, stay healthy, buy and sell, report domestic violence, interact socially. In 2020, 1 out of 4 people in Brazil did not have access to internet. This represents about 46 million people without access to the network. In rural areas, the rate of people without access reaches 53.5%, and in urban areas, 20.6%. Passive access to new digital technologies such as big data or artificial intelligence implies investment in research, development, and innovation. To overcome the effects of the pandemic going forward, society's ability to innovate is highly correlated with the level of development. As governments are pressed to face crises and uncertainty, and opportunity is created to transform governance and development models. Civil society and government needs to work together to promote social cohesion and lay the foundations for a new social contract that creates equality and opportunities for all and allows for the emergence of agreements between actors to define, prepare, and implement response plans and inclusive strategies that build trust in institutions. Finally, to sum up, 3 elements are essential for vision of lasting and resilient recovery. 1. Implement a coherent, multidimensional approach to a response with multiple interconnected dimensions: health, economy, education, environment, and technology. 2. Developing a response through an equity inclusive lens. There can be no efficiency without equity. And three, long-term planning by people to help build resilience for future shocks. COVID-19 is a human tragedy, but it's also created a generational opportunity, an opportunity to build a better Brazil post-pandemic, which means to reconfigure your development model with sustainability and equity. Thank you. Thank you very much to the speech from Katina Argueta, Resident Representative of the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, in Brazil, and Acting Director of the International Policy Center for Inclusive Growth, EPC-IG, linked to the UNDP, and speaking to us about this very important theme, sustainability and the actions of social assistance in these pandemic times, and the way this is changing the way we live and making us to find new solutions. I would like to invite you guys to listen to another poetry from Hope.
Joseli Fernandes is from Ipatinga, in the state of Minas Gerais. She's another lady that is helped by the full life program from LGW. So the narrator was done by the president of the Municipal Academy of Languages in Belo Horizonte, Minas Gerais, Miss Elizabeth Fernandes Lino de Castro. So here we go. Hello everyone, it's a great pleasure to have you here in this wonderful moment. I will read for you this wonderful poem. This poem was done. I think we had some technical issues. Okay, so we're going to continue as we get the right poem. So let me just say hello to you, for people that are watching us. Thank you very much for following us at LGW's 26th International Congress of Social Assistance. So good evening, Deborah Freitas. She's saying, it's a pleasure to be here and do my job at LGW. Eliane as well saying, so we have to have love for the other. Luciana as well. Olivia is Itamar Souza. He's really thankful for LGW for promoting such an important discussion nowadays. We are living a challenging moment. Christina as well, Sheila Christina is in the audience, João Pedro, and saying that he's proud, really proud of being part of LGW's staff. So let's continue. So now let's present the video again one more time. We have the poem The Hope. The author is Joseli Alves Fernandes. She's from Ipatinga, Minas Gerais. And the narrator is the president of the Language Academies in Belo Horizonte, Elizabeth Fernandes Renault de Castro. So let's listen. Good evening, everyone. Today, me, Elizabeth Renault, is going to interpret a wonderful poem that was written by Miss Juscelie from Ipatinga, Minas Gerais. And she's part of the full live program for LGW. The hope with brings joy. I never lose hope because hope moves us as time goes by. We always have to have hope of something that we can achieve. We have to have faith and trust that the victory is going to be achieved. Hope is a feeling that all of us harvest in achievements, in intents, in victories that we can achieve. Yeah, we have just listened to this lovely poem. This poem was presented to us. So now, let me just tell you something. Thank you very much for the members of the audience for the participation. So We have Elisângela Guimarães. We have Odelânia Leite Galdino saying that LGW is love. We also have Viviane Souza, Eliane Nunes. We have Michael Douglas, João Lima for he's saying that the event is wonderful. We have Karine as well. Jéssica Boeira. She's saying hello to everyone from Campo Grande, Mato Grosso do Sul, Brazil. Okay, so let's continue. So now we're going to have the intersectorial dialogue. We're going to have an intersectorial dialogue via the internet. So now let's begin. We're going to welcome here in our studios Daniel Guimarães. Daniel is a sociologist and the host of Solidarity Society. Daniel, good evening. It's a pleasure to have you here. It's a pleasure to be here at LGW's 26th National Congress on Social Assistance. We're going to analyze the psychosocial impacts of the pandemic and how inequality has been getting worse. LGW's representative, Danilo, is having some issues, so I'll be talking to you meanwhile. So the Solidarity Society program is broadcast by LGW. You can follow it on YouTube, and we have interviews with activists, people that are working social activities with by promoting human rights. It is an initiative by the Legion of Goodwill, giving voice to public societies and to the third sector. LGW has been acting on the United Nations since 1994, when LGW was related to UN and achieving major goals. So LGW was really important in establishing connections with the UN. It has reached the maximum degree that institution can have in such international institution. So LGW is entitled to participate in many conferences. So LGW has been advocating for people and promoting recommendations and also making it possible for people and nations to have the necessary assistance in order to improve their social conditions and, of course, benefiting lots and lots of people that have been struggling because of social inequality and that has been aggravated thanks to COVID-19 pandemic. So now I invite you to participate in our session via Mentimeter. You can see the characters on the video. So you can interact with us. You can answer the following question. So you can interact with us in English, Spanish, and Portuguese, because our event is being broadcast in Spanish, Portuguese, and English, and Libras, Brazilian Sign Language. So the question is, what are these psychosocial problems that were aggravated because of the pandemic of COVID-19? So we're going to listen to you. We want to listen to you. You just have to access www.menti.com and you just have to type this PIN number. Look, as you can see at the top of the screen, 5905228. So one more time, 5905228. Go to menti.com. You can answer this question. What are the psychosocial problems that were aggravated because of the pandemic of COVID-19? Okay, so we want to hear your experience, what you have been through, so express in your language, your native language, Portuguese, Spanish, English. It's up to you. So you can answer this question as you wish. And the question is also on the YouTube channel in the chat, so you can also access the link. So we're gonna give you some more seconds so that you can we can talk about the results of this survey. Okay. So meanwhile, let me just introduce you to a mini bio of our attendees, our lecturers that are going to contribute in our event. We have here somebody from the academic sector, so it's important to have different voices talking about different fields so that we can make this debate really fruitful and we can talk about everything regarding social assistance in Brazil and in the world. We have Yonara Rabelo, PhD, psychologist. She's the surveillance manager against violence from the Goiânia Secretariat. She also collaborates with CEPAT Fiocruz for mental health and also psychosocial attention because of COVID-19. Dr. Yonara, thank you very much. Good evening. Dr. Yonara says, Nadassas. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I hope we're going to have a wonderful moment by sharing experience. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much on behalf of LGW. So now we're going to welcome somebody representing civil society, Antonio Paulo Spalletta, an expert in management from Berkeley University. He was also member of the Secretariat of LGW. He also was part of the Administrative Council and also Education Supervisor. He is the Social Supervisor at LGW. Good evening. Good evening, Danielle. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you very much for all the participation by having this wonderful dialogue. We have Leonardo Rabelo and also Bonfim, Ricardo Bonfim. Yeah. So Ricardo Bonfim, thank you very much for being here. He's representing the private sector. He's responsible for circular economy at Enel Brazil. He has a major in social sciences from UFRJ, a master in urban engineering and environmental engineering by PUC Rio. So he's going to share his experience with us, because when we talk about social aspects, it is of utmost importance not only to listen to sectors that we usually associate to social sectors, but also private companies that are really important in this field. He's an expert in business management by IBMEC Rio. Enel is the biggest company in terms of electricity, leader in renewable energy. It also contributes to electricity and also to coming up with solutions, supporting LGW with this love initiative. Good evening, Ricardo. Ricardo says, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you in this wonderful panel. Danilo says, perfect. So it's a pleasure to have all of you here, our lovely guests. So it's important to say that our Congress members and you that are watching us, you can send the questions in the chat on YouTube. And if we have time, we are going to interact with you via the chat. So I think that we have the results of the survey, right? The Mentimeter survey. I do not know if some people are a bit shy, but let's check the results. Just an overview of, as you can see, we have different colors, different percentages. All right. So to begin with, I'd like to introduce some data to you that portray just a fraction of the severe impact of COVID-19 regarding social issues. The reduction of per capita income is a reality. According to the Citizenship Ministry, in April of 2021, we had more than 40 million people living in extreme poverty and 8 million people in poverty situation that are registered in social services. According to the Locomotiva Institute, the last year, approximately more than 4 million people were part of this section of the lowest section. So they have been suffering a lot for sure. So social inequality has been getting really worse in Brazil. And poverty, of course, is not only lack of financial resources, no, but also above all, it is an absence of rights, of opportunities, of information, of possibilities, of access to services. So I would like to invite each lecturer to present their ideas so they can share their knowledge. So I would like to know your perspective on that. So each person will have some minutes for their initial explanation. And now we're going to have a researcher, a collaborator from Fiocruz. And of course, she knows a lot about this. And she, of course, analyzes scientific data. And we know that Fiocruz is a top-notch institution. We're going to have Dr. Ionada. The floor is yours. Dr. Ionada says, good evening, everyone. So based on our experience and our knowledge regarding the pandemic, so we had some expectations regarding suffering. So I would say that 87% of the population, I would say that these people would suffer, but they would leave that suffering after some times. Because of the pandemic, this percentage has changed. So we believe that 20% of people would like to have some support, if it is health support, educational support, so that these people can overcome this huge suffering that was caused by the pandemic. And only 4% of people would have to have uh, the assistance of psychologists and other kinds of help that we have in Brazil. So let me tell you something regarding the pandemic. Before the pandemic, the amount of 20 or 25% that needed specialized help, this number is going to increase to 30, 40% of the population. So what does that mean? That right now we have approximately a great percentage of the population that has been suffering a lot, and they're not able to deal with this suffering. There are many factors such as poverty, unemployment, no dwellings. So we know that we can have lots of risk factors among people. So we can understand that since the beginning of the pandemic, things have been getting worse. So people have been feeling that they have failed, frustration. So this, of course, increases the possibility of violence in the city. So we have, of course, a psychological impact, and we have, of course, the increase of poverty and violence. So in 2021-22, we have reflected upon certain things. So people have been consuming more alcohol, and people have been smoking more, especially youngsters. So in order to overcome sadness, frustration, anger, uncertainties, people have been drinking more, and people have been using chemical substances, tobacco and other drugs, cigarettes, for instance, in order to overcome those problems. So it's a way to mitigate this suffering. So at the same time, we have alcohol, as I've mentioned, and people have been having more health problems. People have been getting fatter. So obesity has been increasing. That is a risk factor that, of course, can provoke diseases that could be really bad for COVID-19 for sure. And we also noticed that this suffering has increased between people that had depression, already had depression. So what I'm saying that we estimated that 50% of people would develop some kind of suffering, and these people would have to have social assistance. And this figure has been increased. We have identified that more than 40% of people already had problems, and they had already noticed some mood problems. And we also noticed that people that had COVID-19, they had some cognitive consequences, long-lasting consequences. We also noticed that people that lost family members, so bereavement is really sad. So not only those people are vulnerable, because many family members died, unfortunately, and we know that people have gone through that. So what we can say that the elderly, people that are the roots of the family, have passed away. So by losing those family bonds and family ties, by losing those people, this of course increase people's suffering. And not only that, people we have lots of orphans because of the the pandemic of COVID-19, people that have lost their moms and dads. So we know that that's really common. We also have a piece of research that analyzes the impact of social isolation on kids, the psychological impact. So the risk of violence has increased, of course, and of course, children as well have been suffering. So these kids can be victims of violence. Last but not least, so let me talk about how women suffer. So when we talk about depression, anxiety, we also see that women have suffered a lot, because we know that women, of course, provide care and attention to their families. So they have lost access to daycares and other things. So we have had an increase in women that have to work more, isolation, and of course, women have been suffering more because they cannot share, they cannot talk about their suffering to anyone. So What I'm saying is that this protective net has been lost. So women have been suffering more. So what I'm saying that these are the most important characteristics of the pandemic. So now we have a scenario with lots of suffering, a long-lasting suffering, and people have been trying to kill themselves more, especially among young people. So what I'm saying is that we have been living a scenario that has to be taken care of.
Thank you very much for this panorama of the questions related to health and the relation between among them. When we fight such a big problem as the pandemic, we have to see all these problems and the way they present in reality interconnected. So I'd like to invite Ricardo Bonfim, responsible for circular economy at Enel, to bring his opinion. Welcome very much. Thank you very much. This scenario that Dr. Ionara showed to us adds to our reality. As many of these situations, they happen inside the houses, the home. So we have a scenario where hospitals and health centers, where they have the necessity of having electricity. Essential services is a part of this context and bring some complications for those who are generating or distributing energy and receiving this energy. In the first moment, one of the biggest problems that Enel had to fight was guaranteeing the security of those who are working on the electricity network. So we had to understand how our collaborators could be taken care doing their jobs. And then we had to create some protocols, understanding how they would deal with the client. And for that, we have to review a scenario, not only on the distribution of the energy, but we have to look in the interior of the country, where we have thousands of people in some cities, small cities, where we have to review all the impacts and the protocols of relationship. This first scenario was very important for us to understand in the perspective what we are living now, and also the transition, the energetic transition, new ways of produce and distribute energy that makes a bigger comprehension of what is to have access to energy. When we talk about poverty, we have to talk about the energetic poverty, not only about access. On the percent of the Brazilian population, we have a very good reach, but also the capacity to maintain those services. And because of that, we have to reinforce and rethink the actions for energetical efficiencies. I would like to underline we had to open more fronts for hospitals and health centers, new strategies for emergencies to give support to all this scenery of economical and social crisis. We had to think as well and rethink actions to local development to guarantee support to fight the pandemic. So, as a first point, I would like to say and reinforce that is totally connected to this perspective that we have to create in partnership. We have to think about our network of workers and clients as an interconnected network. So we have to bring our clients and other people to talk about with us, that we could act and react and give alternatives for the problems we were having now. We can go in deeper science instead. Okay, those aspects will be very welcome. We'd like to follow now with Social Chief Antônio Paulo. Welcome to the debate. Welcome, Daniel. I would like to start my participation making minding the impact of the pandemic on the two aspects. First, the pandemic showed to us the social inequality and shows to us wind back all the development we had before. So we can say that the middle class is going to, a part of the middle class is going to be more connected to poverty, and we're going to have a bigger gap, social gap among the classes in Brazil. Pandemic showed to us the difference, the process of fighting those crises in Brazil. So we had like victims in the pandemic in Brazil. We had the victims that were infected, and some of them died, and those who were impacted. We have those who were infected and those who were impacted, not only on their health, but as well, they're still fighting for surviving, for their well-being. I would like to say here that the right to life is the right to survive. The people who were infected and sadly they came to die, they appeared more in the statistics and on the news in a very strong way. Every day we had those news. But this second part, the people who were impacted by the crisis, they were also contemplated on the news, but because of the basic necessities, like right to have food, like food security, and the care prevent the contamination. But the most real impact, we can say here, is the emotional. Well explained by Dr. Ionara, there was taken care in a very little way. There was nothing in the news. But because it's not visible, and in many times, we cannot detect this problem, but this problem is there, this impact is there. And the consequences of these emotional consequences, they are deepening, they are devastating. If we do not take care of them in time, we can talk about anxiety, stress, fear, loneliness, and depression. And the professionals, LGW, not being from the health area, they had to deal with those aspects. So, as the health professionals that were on the first line of the fight against COVID-19, with a very heroic work, we have to say here like a big thank you for them. The technicians from LGW and the team of LGW, socio-educationals, they had to start and make a small team so that this help, the social assistance would not stop. So they were as well in the first line of fight against the COVID crisis. So here as well, we say thank you for them. And as different organizations, LGW, that had their activities in presential ways and in group as conviviality centers, we had to, those activities, they had to be adapted and had to be done online. On this phase, we had a very big sadness in our groups on the way, how could they do this conviviality without being close to each other with the social distancing. How could they do their work with the social distancing? So the focus of LGW was in the family conviviality, in activities that we could like strengthen the bonds in the family and make this spirit of party and not doing this social distancing with people outside their homes, but being together much more. So we had to think about activities that all the members of the family could be part of those processes and keep these bonds strong and being together in a positive way with all the family members. Beyond that, we had to think about the fragility. In some families got bigger, and the professionals from LGW and all organizations from civil society and schools had to reinvent themselves. So they find ways to get together and thinking and minding the access to technology, thinking how people deal with the technology. That was, Daniel, a very big challenge. Yeah, it's true. It still is a big challenge. And so let's go to our next round. And I would like to talk to Antonio Paulo. So I would like to talk about resiliency. Resilience. As the opening of our speech today, as Katina Guetta were talking about UPNUD, she talked about resiliency as a very important tool on fighting and how can we increase the resiliency. So first, let's see here what people are giving their opinion in Timeter. So you can participate on this code here, 5905228. The question, what psychosocial problems got aggravated through the pandemic? 111, anxiety. 112, depression. 128, unemployment. 15, discrimination. 96, hunger. 95, poverty. 36, suicide. 36, people living on the street, homeless. Breaking family bonds for 20%, for 24%, child labor, and 95, the breaking of domestic violence. So we can see here the answers are very well distributed among things, emotional issues and issues related to unemployment, hunger, poverty, with very strong represented in this graphic, and some other things like domestic violence and the breaking of family bonds. Those things worsened a lot during the pandemic. The pandemic didn't create these problems, but aggravated those problems. As the debaters said, we had here worsening of those conditions because of the pandemic. And talking about this answer and resilience being the answer on the society to deal with the impacts from the pandemic on this epidemic. So let's start this round with Dr. Paulo Espeleta. What is the strategic role of the organizations that work on social assistance can do on this scenario? Well, Daniel, talking about the practice, inclusive practice, is necessary that we have to look about that at the macro view. We have to look at the minorities and how they're living in exclusion. On this sense, we have to think about the participation of the public that is looked after on this social assistance it's fundamental constructing the service and thinking about those programs and those projects and all the benefits on those policies. It's necessary that we structure those mechanisms that make possible hearing and opportunities to debate, like now, we are having now, that we can construct together who is going to be helped, and together with it, we have to think about the opportunities that the users of those services, they can, in the relationship with each other, those users, they can develop interpersonal abilities to overcome those difficulties themselves and with our help. And this not more than resilience. Well, when we talk about the strategic role of those organizations, what I can say now is we have like from ABGE data, Brazilian census, we have 506,000 organizations, non-governmental organizations that work on these social services. Only by this number, we can say that those non-governmental organizations, they are very well represented, and they are very important to guarantee the access for those like populations in social risk to those services. Well, in LGW, we can give an example that we intensified the distance helping and the listening of those problems. We had like a multitask team that we had the reference team from those unities where LGW is present. We can talk about some organizations that show to us that they are necessary and very important on those situations that we are fighting now. So we can say that they could have a very quick answer on the work they did, and we did as well, that we could like see on the news. It could like work on this demand of a bigger social need for social service and give this help and support for those vulnerable communities. We could help in the very beginning, put in the field some task force and help the population.
As organizações que, em sua maioria, nasceram de ideal solidário e altruísta e que se profissionalizaram, né?
Talk about some organizations that start in some altruistic service and that depend themselves on time. Have their base this compromise of, and this compromise is to help the other. It's a reference many communities that they have like those bonds with those organizations. And the professionals work on those organizations. This community has this bond with these organizations, and their assistance that themselves in a very active way, looking to guarantee rights to those people.
Indispensável ainda mais agora. Agradeço ao Sr. Antônio Paulo, que logo volta também a contribuir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Antônio Paulo.
Suas aí, você que está participando no chat, muito obrigado.
So now we have people in the chat. Thank you very much for participation. Maria from Fortaleza, Ceará. She's from Sol do Amor ao Próximo Foundation. She's saying that she's learning a lot. Thank you very much for participation. Your participation is really important to us, for sure. I have Celia's as well saying, congratulations, LGW. It is a very important topic that can promote development for everyone. Gilan says, it is so gratifying to see other sectors concerned about people that are vulnerable. Yeah, so now let's talk to a representative of Enel, Mr. Ricardo Bonfim. It's important to say that people suffer as well from energy poverty, and people that have been following us from other countries. It's important to say that Brazil has been facing a very serious crisis in terms of energy resources. So it's important. So the access to energy is of utmost importance. So those are the fundamental questions that we have to bear in mind. Sometimes people think that this is under their radars. So now let's talk about resilience. Mr. Ricardo Bonfim, can you please talk more about that? So you are from the private sector, and now we have a big challenge to overcome. Okay, the floor is yours, Ricardo said. Okay, so regarding this aspect, I think that it's important to say that we have to establish partnerships. That is pretty important. So right now, I would say that the pandemic has brought interesting insights. Now we are sure that nothing's built by itself, and nobody builds things by themselves as well. As it was just mentioned, we have to be sure that institutions from the third sector are fundamental for establishing those processes. Let me give you an example. Enel last year was able to invest lots and lots of millions in shares. However, those actions could not be put into practice without partnerships. So partnerships are important. So we have established partnerships with LGW, for instance. So we, of course, can deliver food baskets, we can help people. So we will reach indigenous communities, and we know that we have been done lots of things. We have been helping them a lot. We have been establishing partnerships with Fiocruz as well. We have been donating lots of items regarding drugs and medication. Of course, other tools that are related to health. So what I'm saying that we are establishing connections and relations. So let me give you two more examples. One of them is a process that started with food donation. However, this was done in a project that was established locally. So the basis that was created and was focused on people in certain areas so that those people could use that space to build gardens. So, of course, these gardens yielded organic food so that projects could be developed. So now food's being produced, and now, of course, we have to know how to speed up the process to promote its logistics. And also we had the chance of promoting electrical bicycles. So we were able to hire people that lived in the regions. And by doing this, we were able to speed that logistical process. However, we also had to promote safety. And that's why we established partnerships with local groups so that we could produce masks. And I would say that we produced more than 26,000 masks, more than 72,000 towels for children, and that was really important. So I would say that this was really fundamental because we were able to establish connections with local people, local places. And let me tell you something else, something that is also important. We also established partnerships with Natura. Natura, of course, has hygiene products, and of course, it was also connected to our community channels. So by establishing this connection, by joining efforts, we were able to reach thousands of people thanks to this joint effort. And when we think about this perspective, I would say that last year and today, we are promoting the importance of vaccine. And I would say that we are establishing connections with other sectors. Let me give you an example. We are mapping necessities in public, local institutions. So it's important to say that we establish the more connections we can. And we have to empower women as well. So that was a very important decision in terms of strategy. So we established lots of partnerships, as I mentioned, in all municipalities. So we understood their demands, and we coped with different sectors. Let me give you an example. We were providing scientific fridges so that those cities could preserve vaccines in a good way. So those are some examples regarding resilience. I believe that those examples are really important, okay? I want to emphasize the importance of partnership. Danilo says, for sure, it aggregates lots of values, expertise as well in order to cope with complex issues. So we have just talked about these different actors, these different entities in overcoming serious problems. However, the public sector has a different responsibility. Dr. Ionara, could you please tell us more about public services, how those services can respond to the need for psychosocial attention, Dr. Ionara says. Regarding psychosocial attention, let me tell you something. It encompasses lots of areas. As you mentioned previously, we have violence, of course, we have other issues, lack of dwellings. Of course, those aspects increase a person's suffering, especially people that are poor. And this, of course, can be tackled by public ways. But let me tell you something. If we cannot register those people, that could be a problem. So the problem is that with no documentation, we cannot invest. So nowadays, because of the pandemic, there has been a demand in public policies so that they can overcome this tragedy. So we have to have more money. We have to have more investments, because we cannot have the same team that worked 5 or 6 years ago. We cannot have the same team working now. We have to have more people. That's why we have to have financing, and we have to have investment in technology. As people mentioned in the lecture, we have to invest in agriculture, we have to invest in family agriculture. So we have to, of course, make things available to people. So we have to invest on lots of aspects. Let me tell you something else. We have to have more mobile teams. So when we think of rigid services, we have some hospitals, some daycare centers. If we have mobile groups, we can help them. As you can see, in many towns and many cities, we have people that live on the street. We have refugees, we have immigrant people. On the borders of Brazil, we know that unemployment has been increasing. We know that people have lost their jobs. So there are many people that have been suffering. And those people have to have other people that look at them, that assist them, so that we can make them more valuable once again. So we have to have more teams, mobile teams, to help people wherever they are, because they don't have mobile phones, they do not go to hospitals. So those people are disconnected from the big centers. And there's another thing, we have to invest in dwellings as well, and income. So when we talk about professions, I think that people have to be, we have to train people in professions. So I would say that firstly, we have to have public services that are focused on professions, because we know that poverty has been increasing, and we imagine that, of course, but because of the pandemic, the figures have increased. And of course, we have to establish a connection between the public sector, private sector, and the third sector, the tertiary sector. So we have to do this in order to preserve lives, to help people, so that these people can be saved, and we should avoid those people to be forgotten. Danilo says, for sure, it is a huge challenge, because on the one hand, we have an increasing demand, on the other hand, we have a lack of availability of resources. And that's important for sure. So we're going to continue with the debate, and we're going to have some questions from the audience as well. And now we're going, let me ask a question to you that are following us. In one word, in terms of learning, what can we learn from the pandemic in terms of global awareness? Okay, so in one word, what can we learn from the pandemic in terms of global awareness? So go to menti.com and access the code 5905228. So in one word, tell us please, what have you learned because of the pandemic in terms of global awareness? So we have people here in the chat following us. So now we would like to hear from you, your experience. Let me just read something here. Yeah, people have mentioned in the chat: empathy, resilience, awareness. So of course we have domestic violence, solidarity, charity, economy, humanization, solidarity as well, bond. So those are some of the terms that have been used, as you can see. So please contribute. If you do not know this methodology, it's pretty simple. So the tool itself increases the font size. The more people choose a word. So those are the terms that are most frequent by people that are participating in our session. So as you can see, we have other words. You have to reinvent yourself for sure. That's really important. So please contribute. Go to menti.com, code 5905228. So those are the terms that are the most frequent. Okay, so all right, so let's continue. So now we have one last round. So we have questions from the audience. So here we go. Ricardo mentioned something really interesting regarding special issues that Enel has been focusing. In this case, energy. And we know that the energy has been consumed a lot, and this has increased because of the pandemic. So electricity bills have been increasing, especially in Brazil. We have a question here in the chat from YouTube. Nayara do Nascimento. She asks, let's go. Ricardo, let me ask you a question. I've lost my job because of the pandemic. I have some friends that have their wages decreased. So how can we pay our bills, especially we take into account people that have low income? Ricardo says, thank you very much for the question. It's really important. That is of utmost importance. How can we, under this perspective, how can we help people in a specific place? So the first aspect is, of course, we have been living in a very severe scenario, and we are aware of that. It's obvious. Enel has hired more people during the pandemic. So, in fact, we are merging an increase in demand. We also had a growth perspective that was really strong with renewable resources. We have been focusing on development. So we hired more people during the pandemic. So more people have come in instead of coming out. And that's really relevant because it's possible via management procedures how we can keep certain guarantees, how we can guarantee that people keep their jobs. In addition to that, we have been focusing on certain initiatives. Let me give you some examples. Last year and this year as well, we have been working in a project office. So what is that? It is the development of actions in which we establish partnerships with institutions, NGOs, cultural producers. We establish partnerships so that people can access to different content. They can have access to different courses, so these people can develop their careers. Besides that, we also have two other processes, and they are really important. One that encompasses qualification, and also one that establishes partnerships. So those two projects are focused on making sure that we have development of local products. So, for instance, products, special techniques that are applied to a special place, but also we support the selling procedures. And take into account circular economy, we are also focused on the creation of local markets. And and during the pandemic, we have bought lots of things. Not only have we developed, but also bought. And let me tell you something else. We talked about the UN, but since the very beginning, we are focused on sustainable development and the Global Pact. That's really important because we have been committed to local development, to access to technology, so on and so forth. So under this perspective, we want to strengthen local markets, and that's important because we can focus on other goals. And how can we prove that? How can we see that? So last year, we were able to promote a very important SDG. This started in the USA, and this was applied in Europe as well. So this is a clear situation, so we can establish a connection between social goals and environmental goals that are focused on SDGs and also other things. Where we're saying that we have a commitment, and thanks to this process, thanks to the circular economy perspective, we can create a new economy. So those are very important examples that I wanted to talk about.
We go forward here for another question from the audience to Antonio Paulo, Mr. Antonio Paulo. Bruno from Rio de Janeiro asks, how some services from social services can help people who live in poverty and fragility in bonds? It's an excellent question. That's what we've been talking a lot inside in our circles. One of the biggest actions is to articulate the network. As we have said before, this is fundamental to guarantee the rights of the people assisted. And we have to bring all the social sectors, civil society services, private sector, and the public power, and the workers and the people assisted from the services. And we have to make more accessible the possibilities and the dialogue between the people acting, providing this. When we see that there is some psychic suffering and some intrafamiliar and rights violation, we have to stimulate the solidarity and the cooperation in actions that make possible in the community to strategize and make opportunities to exercise the protagonism, learn new abilities, gather some new experiences to strengthen the resilience. This helps to manage this crisis. On the social assistance unit from LGW, psychologists, they are bringing the importance to incentivize people to follow strategies that were used in other crises. So people know they work. And this is being incentivized, so they invest in easy exercises, activities that fight the stress and create some connection and fight the affective isolation, that we can re-elaborate life plans. Those services and those programs from LGW alone, they are fundamental for the creation of those new bonds in friendship and affectivity. So, and this makes a support network and protection. As we saw in this pandemic experience, was essential in all situations and more in the emergencies. That's true. You said before the necessity of working as a team, fighting, and the aspects that put the population in this problem, and also the people who is fighting in the first line, the pandemic. I would like to bring here Dr. Yonara, who has experience with some terminal patients, and as a professional, she's very engaged in a human way, giving service and taking care of those people and taking care of these families. So for you guys who are following this live, we have on the chat people talking stories about depression. Maria Silva from Minas Gerais, she's asking something very important. How do you take care and how to take care of yourself emotionally and to keep going, considering so many people are losing dear relatives?
É uma ótima pergunta, né? Que a gente sempre fala do sofrimento, mas é muito importante falar das estratégias de...
It's an excellent question.
A palavra é coping.
When we talk about like fighting the pandemic, we realized that some studies shows that we have to fight the first steps of depression and anxiety. For example, we have to, when I get better, I go back to walking. So I'm so sad that when I'm happy, I do physical activity again. When I have some depression setting in, you have to fight it with physical activity. If you have some teachers that are working in these situations, integration, getting together with other people will be very important to fight this depression. So we can talk about some activities you can do inside your homes. And some international research showed that physical activity really better very much in fights depression. So we have to think also about sleeping, and when people have to have kind of like sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation is also a very important aspect that you can worsen very much depression. Another thing is talk to people, open yourself, do not enclose yourself in yourself. It's very important to be in a network and open yourself and talk. So we see as a professionals that during the pandemic, we had some avoidance strategies and giving up, fighting this tiredness, or trying to don't mind it with distractions, entertainment, and all this frustration. Where could we go with it? Those strategies are not nice because they don't fight this sadness. So the most important thing is talk with some people you trust, take care of your health, some workers, they are not able to eat, or they don't have time to go to the bathroom. So if you have some colleague, you have to take care of the way they eat and mind them, take care of them. Beyond that, you have to connect to people and try to reconnect to people around you. When you do it, physical activities, and here in LGW, when you start helping people, one of the most positive things in it is when we see that on some crisis before MERS and the nurses that have more mental health were, when we compare those who stayed healthy and those who got sick, those studies shows us that people who are more empathetic, they stayed healthier. So the nurses that after the work, they stayed there to help their colleagues. And those nurses, they stayed healthier. So the problem, we see that those crises were much more like dangerous than what we have now. When you help people around you, you donate, when you activate areas of your mind that when you take with care, when you work with care and engaging in helping people and socializing with other people, this is a big way on fighting those bad feelings. And try to teach people around you. Try to teach people all those strategies were very important for those nurses who stayed healthy. It's possible to learn from other pandemics. We can learn also now and can rethink the way we take care of people around us, and when we take care of people around us, we take care of ourselves. That's true. Those stories, Dr. Yonara, shows to us this hope, a feeling that the pandemic brought to us, the giving help and trying to fight this pandemic, helping everything they had around them. I would like to thank you. Thanks very much, Dr. Yonara Ribeiro, Ricardo Bonfim from Enel, Antônio Paulo Espeleta. Be well, always welcome here. We can talk always. This is an open forum. Thanks very much for the public. And now I'm going to see the last question we made. On Menti.com with the code 5905228. Let's see the words who are here to show what people learn on the pandemic. As the words I said before, we can talk about like protection. We are all equal. Transformation, adaptability, adaptation, fragility, life, equality, collectivity, invent, overcoming, digital inclusion, surviving, strengthening bonds. Not read everything here. Thanks to everybody who helped us now about these numbers. It was interesting to observe here that the public policy here in Brazil, the way it works, and to see the values that people are learning here by themselves. And it's very important. On these big responsibilities, professional responsibilities, that those who dedicate themselves to social service, psychology, and they're working very hard and in a very important way on this unique moment we're living. Dr. Paiva Neto says in his book, Hope Never Dies, he brings to us this feeling that brings us to this action, these actions of civil society and organizations who work on this front, organizing and getting together with the private sector, the public service, help the people who need the most. Ivan Neto says it's always important for the best proposals when the human being give themselves to solve the smallest to the biggest problem that shows in the way. It's a question of respect to the privilege of being here. With these words, we conclude this debate. The Congress goes on, and I bring here Lilian Profeta to finish the work today, and respect was we could see many professionals who were expressing themselves here as speakers and people on the chat, showing this care that all professionals shows, but more we see that in these professions that guarantee rights and work on the social services that are secure in the Constitution, and it's important to give that to people, giving hope to those hearts. I'd like to thank everybody who is here. Andre Reis, she says, so much knowledge. Thank you very much, LGW, to bring this special opportunity to us. Evan Santos talk about like public service and private sector services is the guarantee to give the most vulnerable people access to the basic rights on this pandemic. Diana Cabral from Manaus, Amazonas says, this connection between different sectors and different segments is beautiful. And that's what LGW is making today on this Congress of Social Assistance, bring this knowledge so that all of us can create this big network of solidarity, looking for a better Brazil with more solidarity, where people can have what they need to have a better life. And that's why we're going to thank you. It's going to be connected to us, and the debate finished today, but like we had more coming tomorrow. Thank you, Daniel Guimarães, the president from Sociedade Voluntária, works at the third sector, who was our mediator today in this debate. Thank you, Daniel, for your presence. Thank you very much. And we were talking about hope, and I would like to bring some poetry that we received today. It was a challenge to full life program for the people who are assisted by this service in Brazil. We would like to talk about the poetry from
da cidade de Maceió, nas Alagoas. Idosa atendida por esse serviço de convivência.
Lucimara Parisi, who's Maceió from Alagoas, and she would like to bring her poetry, Speak by Lucimara Parisi.
Boa noite, congressistas. É uma alegria enorme
Good evening.
estar com vocês nesse dia tão especial. Eu vou ler para vocês esta
I would like to talk today
da senhora Noélia
about this poetry from Senhora Noélia Teres da Silva. She is 70 years old and she lives in Maceió, Alagoas.
Vida Plena da Legião da Boa Vontade.
She is in the full life program
Maravilhoso.
by an LGB.
Eu tenho esperança de que tudo
I have
isso
hope
vai passar. E quando o
that
vírus morrer,
all of that is be over.
todos voltarão a brincar.
And when the virus dies, everybody will play again. I thank God for keeping me strong and not give up. For in the near future, we can go back to LGW. I trust science and the power of vaccination. I want to see everybody new so we can go back in happiness. I hope that all take care, keep hope and happiness. Stay strong and ready to live in a new day.
Todos firmes e prontos para viver um novo dia. Essa é a poesia Esperança, da senhora Noélia Teles da Silva, de 70 anos, da cidade de Maceió, nas Alagoas, usuária do Serviço de Convivência Vida Plena da LBV na cidade. Esse poema foi declamado pela jornalista e apresentadora de TV, Lucimara Parisi. E nós vamos convidar você agora a acompanhar um vídeo do cotidiano
So
das
now we're going
crianças,
to
dos
watch
adolescentes e suas
a
famílias
video
de várias
that
partes do Brasil.
portrays
E
kids and
continuar
their families from
participando
many
das
places of
atividades
Brazil. People
socioeducacionais
that
da
have been
Legião da
part
Boa
in
Vontade,
the
LGV,
social
de
educational
forma
activities
não
in
presencial.
LGW
Nós
in a
acompanharemos
remote
essas
way.
imagens ao som da música
So now let's
Semeie
continue.
a
We're going
Paz,
to
de
listen
melodia e
to
letra
a
do
song,
professor Newton Duarte.
Sound Peace by Newton Duarte.
Esse dia que nasci, plante uma semente, junte-se a gente, forme um jardim. Esse dia que vem, vem você também, fazer diferente, o mundo assim. Esse novo dia, semeie a paz, plante uma semente na sua razão. Esse novo dia, semeie o amor, plante uma semente em seu coração. Esse dia que nasci, plante uma semente, junte-se a gente, forme um jardim. Esse dia que vem você também, fazer diferente, o mundo assim. Esse novo dia, semeie a paz, plante uma semente na sua razão. Esse novo dia, semeie o amor, plante uma semente em seu coração. Esse novo dia, semeie a paz, plante uma semente na sua razão. Esse novo dia, semeie o amor, plante uma semente em seu coração. Esse novo dia, semeie a paz, plante uma semente na sua razão. Este novo dia, semeie o amor, plante uma semente em seu coração. Em seu coração.
Esse é o desejo das crianças da LBV, que todos nós possamos semear a paz. A gente ouviu aí e assistiu também as crianças atendidas pela Legião da Boa Vontade, usuárias de seus programas e trabalhos e serviços, né, de assistência socioeducacional em todo o Brasil e que continuam sendo atendidas também neste período de pandemia, durante todo esse enfrentamento, né, das necessidades de distanciamento social. A música Semeie a Paz tem melodia e letra do
So the song
professor
is entitled
Newton Duarte.
Sowing the
Nós vamos
the
convidar
Peace
você agora
by
a
Newton
acompanhar
Duarte.
a
So
palestra do
now
senhor
we are
Alain
going to
Bojanic.
invite
Ele é representante da
you
Organização
to
das Nações
watch
Unidas para
Alain Bojanic.
Alimentação e
He
Agricultura FAO
represents
da Colômbia,
the
doutor em
UN and
Economia
FAO,
Ambiental pela
FAO,
Universidade de Utrecht, na Holanda.
PhD,
Ele
Environmental
falará com a
Economy
gente sobre
for the
segurança
Netherlands. He's going to talk
alimentar e
to us
nutricional e os impactos da
about
pandemia. Senhor
security
Alain,
and
seja
nutrition
bem-vindo.
impacts of
Uma
the
boa
pandemic.
noite. Acho que é nessa aqui.
So, good evening.
Não está chegando para mim, 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 não está chegando para mim.
Nós tivemos aí uma questão técnica, estamos
We had a
ajustando
technical
já já.
issue.
Nós então
Let's just
acompanharemos a palestra
adjust.
do senhor Alan Bojani.
And now we're going
Enquanto
to
isso,
have
enquanto nós
Alan
vamos fazendo esses
Bojanik's
ajustes técnicos, eu quero passar
lecture.
com
So
você
while
a
we fix
programação da
some
nossa
issues,
noite de
so now let's talk
amanhã.
about
Nossa segunda noite desse evento,
our
nós
event tomorrow,
teremos
the second
também
event, the
a
second night of the
palestra
event. So we're going to
Atuação na
have the
Proteção
lecture
Social Básica no
on
Período Pandêmico,
social
com a senhora
protection
Aldenora
during the
Gonzalez,
pandemic
assistente
by
social,
Aldenora
vice-presidente do
Gonzalez,
Conselho Nacional de
Vice
Assistência
President of
Social.
the National Council
Teremos
of
ainda a
Social
palestra
Assistance.
O
We're going to
Enfrentamento da
have the lecture
Covid-19 e a
called
atuação
Facing
humanizada em
COVID-19
abrigos
and
institucionais
a
para
humanized
idosos, com a senhora
way to deal
Marília
with the pandemic
Berzins,
by
doutora em saúde
Marília
pública e
Bezins,
presidente do
PhD
Observatório da
in Public
Longevidade Humana
Health
e
and also the
Envelhecimento.
president of
Teremos também a
the
palestra Impactos
Human
da
Longevity
Pandemia em
Institute. So we're going
Indivíduos
to
e
have a lecture
Famílias
on the impacts
atendidos
of the
pela
pandemic
LBV,
on
com o
individuals
senhor
and people
Wilson
that have
Dias,
been assisted by
gestor do
LGW by Wilson
Departamento
Bigas, manager
Socioassistencial da
of the
LBV.
Social
Nós teremos
Assistential
também uma
Department of
noite com
LGW.
debates
And we're also
desses
going to have a
palestrantes,
debate
além
as
de,
well.
lógico, muita poesia e
And we're going to have lots
esse
of
nosso
poems
bate-papo,
for
essa nossa
sure.
conversa
And we're
também.
going to
Eu quero
have
agradecer a quem
a
está
very good
participando
conversation.
pelo chat da nossa
So let me
transmissão.
just
A Amanda
welcome people that are here in
Caçuriaga,
the
ela
chat.
é do Rio
We
Grande
have
do Sul, está em
Amanda.
sintonia. A Márcia Negreiros também
We
está
have any Stephanie
sintonizada.
as
Rita de
well.
Oliveira diz boa
Also
noite.
here in the
Conta
chat,
que é
Rita
assistente
Oliveira, she
social
said
do
that
projeto
good
A Nossa
evening. So
Casa,
she's a
em
social
Porto
assistant
Seguro, na
in
Bahia, e
a
parabeniza a
project in
Legião da
Porto
Boa
Seguro,
Vontade.
Bahia.
A
She's
Viviane
is
Uga
really
diz que
thankful
tem
for the
orgulho
event.
de fazer
Viviane
parte da
Kuga says
LBV
that she's
na
really
cidade de
proud of
Campo
taking
Grande, no
part
Mato
in
Grosso do Sul.
LGW in Campo
A
Grande, Mato Grosso
Luciana
do
conta
Sul.
que também
We
tem
also have
orgulho de fazer
Luciana.
parte da
Luciana
equipe
says that
Change
she's
em
proud of being
Goiânia.
part of
A
the
Yu Lisboa, de
team in
Paranaíba,
Goiânia.
no Mato Grosso do
Eunice
Sul, também aqui
Boa from
marcando
Paranaíba, Mato
presença.
Grosso do
A
Sul as
Neuci
well. She's
Kurz,
here with
ela
us.
diz que é um
We have
lindo
Neuci
trabalho esse que foi
Kursi. She said that
apresentado
it's a
esta
wonderful
noite no
project
26º
uh,
Congresso
at
Internacional de
here at
Assistência
LGW's
Social
26th
da
International Congress on
Legião da Boa
Social
Vontade.
Assistance.
A Rejane Coutinho também
We have
mandando aqui o seu
Rejane
boa
Coutinho
noite.
as well,
Nós temos aqui
saying
também
good evening. We
a
also have, let me
participação da
check.
Cleise
We have the
Viana,
participation of
de
Cleise
Salvador, na
Viana
Bahia, e
from
o Eurípides
Salvador, Bahia,
Moreira,
Brazil. We
dizendo que
have
tem
Euripides
orgulho de fazer
Moreira
parte da
saying that he's
LBV e
really
ser um
proud of being part
voluntário.
of
A
LGW
Maria
and
de
a
Fátima
volunteer for
Alves,
sure.
também
Maria de Fátima
sintonizada. Maria
Alves
Regina
also
Souza,
here with us. Maria Regina
o
Souza.
José Mateus,
We have José
Deusimar
Mateus,
Castro, de Anhanguera, São
Deusimar
Luís do
Castro from
Maranhão,
Anhanguera,
presente
São
também aqui
Luís,
nesta
Maranhão,
transmissão do
Brazil, here
Congresso
with us.
Internacional
So
de
here
Assistência
at
Social da
LGW's
Legião
26th
da Boa
International Congress
Vontade.
on Social
A Ivanilda
Assistance.
Brum, ela é da
We
cidade do
have
Rio de
Ivanilda
Janeiro, diz
Brum
que ficou
from Rio de
comovida em
Janeiro
rever a história, né,
saying
desde o seu
that
nascimento
she's
até o
really
trabalho
happy
realizado
to be
hoje,
here with us.
a história da Legião da Boa
We also
Vontade. E
have
parabeniza toda a
people
equipe que faz
watching
parte deste
us
trabalho.
and really happy
A
for being
Simone
here.
Gomes também
We
nesta
have Simone
sintonia,
Gomez as well.
participando
She's
com a
here
gente
with
pelo
us,
chat. Você pode fazer o
participating
mesmo, pode
in the
continuar aí
chat. So
registrando a
we can
sua
do the same. We
opinião.
can
E nós
be
convidamos
here with
você,
us,
mais uma vez, a
writing your comments in the
participar
chat. So we invite
deste
you to
trabalho solidário,
participate
fazer parte desta corrente
in
de
this
solidariedade. Você está
solidarity
vendo aí
work, in
um
this
QR Code
solidarity work.
para que
You have
você
the
possa
QR code
também
here on the
contribuir
left
com este
so that
trabalho
you
de
can
assistência social
contribute
da
with this
Legião da Boa
lovely
Vontade em suas
event
inúmeras
by
unidades
assisting
espalhadas em
LGW.
todo o
There are
Brasil. A
many
LBV
units all over
continua
Brazil,
atendendo
many
a
centers
quem
all over
mais
Brazil, and
precisa.
LGW has been
Desde
helping
já,
people,
nós aqui
people that need the
expressamos o
most.
nosso
So thank you very
agradecimento a
much
você que está
for
nesta
helping
sintonia.
us. We're really
E
grateful
também
for your assistance.
nos ligando, né, através das suas redes
And thank you
sociais,
very
pelo
much
arroba
for calling us,
LBV Brasil,
for
ou pela
being with us
hashtag
at
Congresso
LBV
Social
Brasil,
da
LGW
LBV.
Brazil, and
Quem
Social
mais está aqui
Assistance
participando com a
Congress
gente
from
é a
LGW. We have
Noemi
other people as well. We have
Takaki.
Noemi
A
Takaki. Yes, that's
Eudilene
it.
Leal também está nessa
Eudilene
sintonia.
Leal as
Edinalva
well. She's here
Martins
with us.
Rodrigues, de
Edinalva
Unai, em Minas
Martins
Gerais.
Rodrigues from
Vilma
Unai, Minas
Pereira diz
Gerais.
que está em
We have
sintonia,
Vilma Pereira.
está na
She's here with
sintonia
the
em
chat.
Salvador,
She's
na
watching us in
Bahia. A
Salvador, from
Virgínia
Salvador,
Kelly
Bahia.
parabeniza a
Virginia
LBV pelo
Kelly
trabalho lindo
is
que
really thankful
desenvolve. Diz que
for all the things
felicidade
that
fazer parte
LGW has
deste
been
trabalho.
doing. It's so
A
good to be
Sueli
here.
Gomes
We have Sueli Gomes as well, Celina Camargo from Franca. We have Larissa Brunelli from Criciúma, Santa Catarina. Amélia Freitas, Belíssimo. Amélia Freisa, she says, oh my God, that's wonderful. Wonderful work by
Andrade, de Montes
LGW, Maria
Claros, em Minas
Haddad, from Montes
Gerais, também na
Claros, Minas
sintonia.
Gerais, as well.
Adriane Rodrigues,
We
na
have
sintonia
Adriane
no sul do Brasil.
Rodrigues here with
Ana
us from the
Lúcia
south of
também
Brazil.
aqui
Ana
nesta
Lúcia
sintonia.
here
Jéssica
with
de Oliveira
us.
Félix,
Jessica
de
Oliveira
Inhumas,
Felix from
Goiás.
Inhumas,
Nós
Goiás.
estamos aqui
Lovely.
aguardando
So
também,
here we are.
confirmar mais uma vez, estamos fazendo aqui alguns
We're waiting
acertos
for.
técnicos
We just
para a última palestra
just
do
tweaking
dia.
having some
E
issues.
você continua aí nesta nossa sintonia.
And
Vale a pena
here
esperar
we are
mais um pouquinho
here in
para a gente
Centene.
acompanhar este material que seguirá, né, para todos nós nesta noite. Falamos
So let's
sobre muitos
continue. We are
temas
talking about important
importantes,
topics. They
especialmente
are
atualizados,
really,
né, que
really
envolvem o trabalho da assistência
meaningful.
social
And
e
of course,
instituições na
they are
pandemia.
connected
A
to
Legião
social
da Boa
assistance in the
Vontade chama
pandemic. The
suas
Legion of
forças a tantas
Goodwill
outras
is,
entidades
of course,
parceiras
gathering
no
lots of
Brasil
people,
e pelo mundo
getting
também, para que esse
institutions
trabalho
together in
continue
Brazil and
sendo
all over the world
realizado.
so that
E
this
você
work can
faz
be
parte desta
done.
família,
And you're
você está
part
nos
of this
acompanhando
family.
onde
You're
quer
here
que
with us,
esteja, aqui no
whatever
Brasil
you
ou no
are, here in
exterior,
Brazil
o
or in
nosso
other places.
agradecimento
Thank you
pela
very
sua
much for being
presença.
here.
Nós, mais uma vez, vamos aproveitar aqui a oportunidade para dar mais uma rodada aqui de alôs a quem está nesta
Okay, so we
sintonia
have
participando
more
pelo
people
chat.
here in the
A
chat watching
Juraci
us. Here we go.
Vieira
We have Juraci
Gutierrez
Vieira
disse que conhece
Gutierrez.
essa
She
corrente
says
de
that she
solidariedade. Que bom,
knows
Juraci,
this
muito obrigada.
solidarity
A
network.
Ana
Thank you very much for your presence.
Castanho
Ana
também
Castanho
está
as
nesta
well.
sintonia. O
She is
Milton Ribeiro
also with us,
Martins,
Milton
ele
Ribeiro
está na cidade de
Martins.
Goiânia, Goiás, na
He is
sintonia,
from Goiânia,
agradecendo a
Goiás, and of course
LBV,
he's
que
watching us
sempre
and being
trabalhou,
grateful for
trabalha e
LGW.
trabalhará por um
LGW has
Brasil
been
melhor e por
working
uma
a lot and
humanidade
it will also
mais
work
feliz.
for
Alisson
Brazil's future,
Barbosa
making
também
people
está
happier.
nesta
Alison
sintonia, assim como
Barbosa
a
is here
Regina
with us,
Marques,
and Regina
parabenizando o trabalho
Marks.
da LBV.
Thank you very much for being
Nós
here.
temos aqui a
She's
Analice
congratulating
Leal
us
também,
for
falando, olha que
our work.
lindo este
Alice Leal
trabalho por um Brasil
says,
melhor e
what
uma
a wonderful
humanidade
piece of
mais
work
feliz. Mais uma
fighting
vez
for
a
a
gente
better
recebe
Brazil.
Daniel
So now
Guimarães
we're gonna
aqui com a gente,
we're gonna
participando
have
aí,
more
fez uma
people here.
gentileza de
Just a
pegar o papel que
second.
caiu. Mas
Yeah, I've
acontece, a gente
dropped
está
a piece
numa
of
transmissão
paper,
ao
but
vivo e às
here
vezes é
we
assim
are on a
mesmo, tem
live
muito
session.
papel
Thank
na
you very
mão,
much for
né,
the
Daniel, e eles
support.
acabam
We have
caindo.
so many
Mas
things
quero
to hold,
aproveitar a
right,
sua
Danielle?
presença
Thank
para
you
a
very
gente
much for
poder
your help.
agradecer
So,
mais desses
Danielle,
nossos
thank you very much
convidados
for
que
being
estão com a
here.
gente
And I
acompanhando
think
a
that you would like
transmissão
to
da
say
26º Congresso
more things,
Internacional
right?
de
People that are
Assistência
watching us
Social
at
da Legião
LGW's
da Boa
26th
Vontade.
International Congress on
Vamos
Social
lá. Dentro de
Assistance.
instantes a gente
Danielle
vai
says,
acompanhar então
yeah.
a
So,
palestra do Dr.
in a
Alan
few moments, we're
Bojanic
going to
nesse
watch
painel
Alan Bojanik's lecture.
multidisciplinar que a
It
LBV
is
está
a
promovendo e por isso
multidisciplinary
nosso
panel
agradecimento a
that
todos
LGW has
vocês
been
que seguem aí
promoting.
no
Thank you very
chat
much for being
participando. Vale
here,
destacar
following
mesmo
us in the
quanto
chat.
essas
And it's
diferentes
important to
áreas,
say
diferentes
that we have
disciplinas
different
contribuem
areas,
com
different
olhares
subjects,
específicos para
and
essa
they, of
questão
course, they
que
have a
não
different
pertence a um
perspective,
setor
and they
só,
all
mas nós
contribute
precisamos, como
to this
sociedade,
issue.
de
Not
forma
only as
geral,
society, we have to
encarar
be
esses graves
aware
desafios.
of
Então,
these
desde o
problems in order to
começo do
face
dia de
them. So
hoje,
since the
quando
very
tivemos a
beginning,
palestra com a doutora
when
Karina
we had
Geuter,
the
representando
lecture
o PNUD, o Programa das Nações
by
Unidas para o Desenvolvimento, ela vinha
Mrs.
destacando a
Argenia,
importância de
she
diversas
has
frentes, como,
been
por
talking
exemplo,
about the
a
importance
questão da
of
inclusão, da
projects. She's
resiliência
been
para
talking
podermos
about
fazer frente a
resilience,
esses desafios
inclusion in order
relacionados à
to
pandemia.
cope
Muito obrigado,
with
viu?
challenges.
Agradecemos também aos
We are
palestrantes que
really
fizeram
thankful
parte,
for
então,
the
desse
lectures, of
debate, já
course, the
trazendo alguns
debaters.
desdobramentos
And
práticos a
of course, we
respeito disso.
have
Como é que a gente
consequences,
operacionaliza, de
practical
certa forma, né? Como a gente
consequences. How can we put
traduz
this into practice?
essas medidas de forma
how we can
concreta,
translate
repercutindo no
those
cotidiano das pessoas.
procedures,
Então,
those
tivemos o painel
ideas into
intersetorial
people's
formado
lives.
ali
So we
pelo senhor
had
Ricardo
this
Bonfim, representando a Enel, que
multidisciplinary
trouxe aí essa
panel. We have
representatividade
Ricardo
da
Bonfim
iniciativa
representing
privada,
Enel.
que tem sim um
Of course,
papel
he's from the public
importante a desempenhar.
sector,
Ele
and of
mencionou
course,
ali,
we know that this
inclusive,
sector
os
is really, really
ODS da ONU,
important,
os
and
Objetivos
it
de
has been
Desenvolvimento
helping with
Sustentável, conjuntamente
UN's
às iniciativas até o
SDGs,
ano de 2030, e que
and
abarcam temas
those have to
sociais,
be achieved
jurídicos,
by
humanos, também temas
2030 that
ambientais.
encompass social
Aliás, a
rights,
pandemia
environmental
mostrou quanto
rights.
essas
We
questões
know
estão
that the pandemic
relacionadas, e as
has been
questões
saying
relacionadas à saúde
that
pública, à ciência,
how those
e
things are
atualmente
important
também
by talking
vencemos
about
aí com esses dados
resilience.
recentes publicados pelo IPCC da ONU,
And we
o
know the
agravamento da
IPCC
questão
has
climática
published
e os
important
riscos que
data
isso traz para
talking
todos nós.
about how the
Tivemos a
climate
fala
has
do
been
senhor
getting
Antônio Paulo
worse.
Espeleta,
We have we had Antonio Spaletta as well, representing the Legion of Goodwill. He, of course, has lots of experience, and LGW has been working for more than 70 years promoting social services. And of course, LGW has been acting in education as well and promoting top-notch services. And we know that that people have been living in extreme poverty. And those bad situations have been increasing. And Dr. Nara Rabelo, she's sharing her perspective. She's from the public sector. We know that public sector is really important. And that's a very important panel, a very encompassing panel. And now we know more about that. So our technical issues have been solved. So now let's continue. We're going to listen to Alan Bojanik's lecture. He represents FAO for Colombia, PhD in environmental economy from Utrecht in the Netherlands. He's going to talk about security and the impacts of the pandemic. Alan, thank you very much for being here. Let me just say certain things in Portuguese. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I participated in this event in Brasília, so it's a pleasure to be here for sure.
Que me pediram para falar, basicamente,
So,
se refere
the topic I'm going to talk about is how the pandemic
aumentou essa questão da visão para a segurança alimentar
has been related to food security in Brazil. Let me tell you something.
De que durante a década do século XXI, nós tivemos importantes
During the first decade of the 21st century,
fome,
we have been noticing that poverty has been increasing, of course, and malnutrition as well has been increasing. So it's important to have this in mind. In 2015, problems have increased, and I would say that the pandemic, in terms of increase, the pandemic has made those things worse, not only in Brazil, but all over the world.
Isso manifesta através de algumas questões.
And of course, this can be seen in different ways. Let me tell you something first.
Fluxo de alimentos.
I'm going to talk about food flow.
Todos os circuitos de alimentação foram afetados.
All food transportation procedures have been harmed.
Cortando o áudio dele, por favor. Muitos hotéis foram fechados.
Many hotels have been closed.
Houve desencontro
So
entre oferta
what I'm
e
saying
demanda.
is that there was a mismatch between supply and demand.
Isso é o primeiro elemento importante.
And that's really important. Many food producers have suffered as well, and the pandemic has made this even worse. Let me tell you about another factor. People have lost their jobs, and the amount of unemployed people has increased.
Acima de 20%.
So unemployment has increased by 20%.
Toda a capacidade aquisitiva para que as pessoas pudessem.
So what I'm saying is that in order to feed themselves, people have spent more money. That's a problem. Let me tell you about a third factor.
Fizeram grande esforço para manter.
Lots of states have done their best in order to keep their programs alive.
Isso nem sempre foi possível porque havia
And sometimes that was not possible because there were some interruptions. There were lots of problems regarding reaching communities, and those programs were interrupted. Food could not reach those places. So I would say that there was a commotion.
Em 100 milhões de pessoas aumentou a pobreza.
So what I'm saying is that poverty has increased, and there is a connection between food security and poverty, and to be more specific, extreme poverty.
Para esta situação requer relançamento das políticas sociais.
What I'm trying to say is that public policies have to be reimagined, replanned. So we have to know, we have to better analyze resources, how to better apply those resources in order to help people in terms of food supply. I know that certain things have improved,
mas sem dúvida alguma não foi ainda o suficiente.
But it was still insufficient in some places.
Há problema
So
seríssimo.
diet has
falta de vitamina A
got worse. We
e
had
muitas outras
lack of vitamin
vitaminas
A,
que afeta
anemia,
tremendamente
and
a
these diseases,
capacidade
of course, they have a huge
de
impact
poder levar, de ter uma
on
dieta saudável.
making people have a healthy
Deteriorou,
diet.
também afetou os níveis psicológicos
This had an impact
emocionais,
on people mental health.
de não poder levar, por exemplo, a alimentação às suas crianças. Essa
So
dificuldade para
people,
comprar
kids could not eat
alimentação
enough
saudável,
food.
requer a forma de repensar as políticas
So what
sociais,
I'm trying to say is that we have to
de
rethink
como nós
public
podemos
policies,
garantir de que, pelo menos, essa situação prévia, como já disse,
because
era
we
uma
have
situação
to
delicada,
deal with
era uma
issues.
situação
We have to deal with those clear
estava se
issues.
deteriorando, e sem dúvida
And the
alguma
situation has been getting worse and worse.
requer de novo melhores atendimentos.
And of course, the situation, this problem has to be tackled.
Nós sugerimos desde a
That's what
FAO
I'm trying to
à
say.
organização que eu represento, como nós podemos dar esse passo
How can we take a step forward in order to overcome this problem? Let me tell you something.
realizar maiores orçamentos, temos
So,
orçamento público para
when we talk
atender essa
about,
primeira necessidade,
we have to
criar políticas
invest
de emprego,
public
sociais,
budget
de melhora,
in a better way.
programas
So we have to promote a better income among
para a
people.
alimentação escolar,
So we have to invest in food, school food, of
reformas
course,
escolares, transferências diretas.
popular restaurants, so on and so forth.
Há toda uma situação
So what I'm trying to say is that there is a very complex situation that we have been
que
living.
os esforços sejam canalizados
And of course,
em direção a
efforts
superar
have
a
to be
situação de
channeled.
crise alimentar,
We have been having a crisis.
isso passa também pelos produtores. Os
And of
produtores
course, this has to do with food
foram
producers.
afetados em alguns casos, eles não podiam colocar seus produtos. Então, as políticas de assistência técnica, os produtores de crédito,
Food producers have to be aware of the problems.
também uma necessidade nessa conjuntura. Não é, sem dúvida alguma, que a pandemia nos deixa
I can honestly say
dentro desses objetivos da chamada
that
Agenda 2030,
the epidemic is related to the 2030 agenda,
os problemas de
which
desenvolvimento,
is a global plan in order to tackle social problems, environmental problems.
também temos agravante
And there is something worse.
com relação ao aquecimento global,
And the problem is global warming, climate change, and we have been
secas,
a lot. We have droughts,
efeitos fortes na própria
strong
agricultura,
impacts on
comprometendo ainda mais
agriculture,
o abastecimento dos alimentos.
and this, of course, has an impact on
Então,
food
com essa
supply.
complexidade, eu não quero
And because of this complex issue, of course, we don't have time to talk about that in just 5 minutes,
mas eu estou mostrando os números.
but I'm showing you the figures. And because of the pandemic, those numbers have gotten worse. And that's why people have to mobilize themselves. They have to get together in order to better understand
Faz uma agenda comum, agenda
how those
compartilhada.
goals, the 2030 goals, can be achieved.
Mas é preciso certamente
So what I'm trying to say
condicionar a realidade.
is that we have to face reality, the reality of each country, each place. So what I'm trying to say is that solidarity, and we know that solidarity is LGW's most powerful slogan, solidarity is important. So I would say that in 10 years, we can improve our lives. Of course, we have been suffering. We had a problem in terms of poverty and low income. But how can we go back to our previous stage towards development? So we have to do our best, have to make effort. And we have to be committed to the cause. So congratulations, LGW, for this lovely initiative by talking about food security and, of course, the importance of gathering resources and how people can invest more and how people can be connected So food is there, of course. There is no problem in food production. No,
de colheita de alimentos.
there's no problem in harvesting. The problem is
Que seja compatível
the
com isso.
having an agenda that is compatible to all that. So basically,
Essas são algumas das reflexões que
those
gostaria
are my
de
thoughts
propor
regarding
como
this
tema
issue.
para voltar a encaminhar nesse
So what I'm trying to say is that we have to bear this in mind.
que vá nesses objetivos,
So we have to take those goals in mind in order to have a better world. Thank you very much.
Agradecemos ao senhor Alain Bojani, que
Thank you
representa
very much, Alain Bojanic, representing FOA from Colombia. So now we're talking about the pandemic, nourishment, security. They're really important, of course, for development, especially among young kids.
Impactos que a pandemia causou neste contexto. Nós agradecemos mais uma vez a você pela audiência.
So thank you very much once again. And thank you very much for being here with us. We count on you at LGW's 26th International Congress on Social Assistance. It was a pleasure to have you here. So we dedicate our Legionnaire Salute. And why do we do that? Because we want that peace, harmony, and spirituality are present in your lives. God is present. Jesus lives in our hearts forever. See you tomorrow.